I see.
Why is it, you might ask, that the best idea of how to be human in the 21st century comes from a 50-year-old British science fiction television program about a 1,000-year-old alien with 2 hearts from a fictional planet of Gallifrey who travels around in space-time in a wooden box? It's a bit quirky, ain't it? And it's typically British. I think maybe that one of the reasons for that is that we are one of the first generations that fears the future. We don't really know how the future will plan out, do we? And it's clear, isn't it, from listening to the politicians, that they have no idea. It's a future that needs to be planned, isn't it? And I think that you could argue that science fiction like Doctor Who, its business is the future. It's all about the future and how that future might plan out. Thank you, John. So this program, Doctor Who, along with all other science fiction, its business is the future. It's creative about the future and what might happen in it. But nonetheless, John and I claim it does make some serious points about the future. Thank you. Now, generally, the mode of science fiction, we might call it, what science fiction does is a very kind of thorny subject, and it's taken a long time to try to define itself. A working definition of science fiction might be that science fiction is all about trying to make sense of the universe as unveiled by science, to make human what is alien, if you like. And the general discourse of science fiction is all about the confrontation between the human and the non-human. And John and I are going to talk about the non-human in 4 ways. We're talking about space, time, machine, and monster. Those 4 elements of the non-human. But before we do that, more of a kitchen sink definition of science fiction that I like. John and I were talking to a Doctor Who writer, and he said he thought the Doctor Who was all about galaxy and chips. I thought that was a bit rum, until he described that he thought it was all about the human out into the galaxy, taking the human out into the galaxy. And there's a little more human, I guess, than chips, or a little more British than chips. So that's another point of view. It was backed up actually by this quote by Peter Capaldi. Thank you, John. As you can see, Doctor Who is a relationship between the domestic and the epic. If that isn't galaxy and chips, I don't know what is. You can step from the Earth, from the supermarket car park, into the Andromeda galaxy. Okay, so let's consider space. We're going to look at 4 themes, space, and each of these themes will have a what-if question. And for space, the question I get is, what if there are other Earths? Now, I don't know if you know, thank you, John, but space exploration is pretty old. I don't know if you know, but the spacecraft was first invented when this guy was on the Earth, Shakespeare. Kepler, a German mathematician and physicist, wrote to Galileo in the early 1600s, suggesting they made spacecraft so they could sail the seas of space as easily as they could sail the seas of the Atlantic or whatever. And science fiction stories about discovering new worlds in space are as old as that. The idea is, I think, with the Voyages of Discovery, if you can find new worlds in space, if you can find new worlds on Earth, why not also find new worlds in space? And one of the first stories written about a voyage into space, believe it or not, was written in Cardiff. In fact, the first alien contact story written in the English language was written in Cardiff in 1638 by the Bishop of Llandaff, Francis Godwin. And he wrote a book, called A Man in the Moon. John's going to release an animation at this point.
I released it.
Oh, you already have. Sorry, I should have kept an eye on the monitor there, shouldn't I? Godwin's journey was slightly unusual. He sends a guy called Domingo Gonzalez, because all navigational people in space as well as on Earth, of course, are Spanish. So he sends Domingo Gonzalez to the moon. And he gets there by goose, which is rather strange, isn't it? As a form of rocket propulsion. He gets there by goose. He's going to China, but he forgets the geese migrate to the moon, and he ends up on the moon. But interesting to know that it's as old, and space ideas and alien contact stories are as old as that. Doctor Who has been creating these worlds for the last 50 years. But you might know, again, thank you. Thank you, John, for muting that. You might know that only since 1995 have we discovered worlds, actual worlds in reality. Doctor Who's been writing about these other Earths, and only since then, only since 1995, we actually discovered them. And NASA, in fact, has made a couple of posters recently about imagining what life might be like in those other worlds. Exactly something the Doctor Who's been doing for the last 50 years.
Okay, so let's move into the time area. And you could say that time could be about what if we could tamper with time. A lot of people are keen on Doctor Who because of the time travel. And obviously Doctor Who is all about time travel, but many of these are other different themes. So some of you may remember that actually time only went back about 6,000 years. In the West, we only thought it was 6,000 years old. But then we realized actually time is a lot more ancient than that. It's actually 14 billion years more ancient. And Doctor Who actually takes place within this view of the universe. Imagine Doctor Who with only 6,000 years to play with. It'd be rubbish, isn't it? Yeah? So 14 billion years makes it so much more worthwhile. And Doctor Who is all about this modern view of time. But there's also someone else who has changed our view of time. We used to think time goes on at a steady pace. It goes on at a pace of 1 second per second. Now, this seems like a normal thing to understand. Yeah, of course, time's 1 second every second. But this guy came along, he's sticking out his tongue, Einstein, and he went, actually, I've worked out these things about relativity, and time doesn't actually flow the same speed. Depending on the speed you're going, or how much gravity you've got around you, time can slow down or speed up relative to something else. It's called relativity. And he found that actually time can tick at not 1 second per second, but at a different rate, depending on the gravity and the speed. And there are actually guys who have confirmed this. Astronauts in space, because they're away from the stronger gravity's a bit weaker, and because they're moving so fast, time has a different tick for them than it does if they was on Earth. So some astronauts who've been up there for 2 years actually are younger than they should be. Now, don't get carried away and think, I'm going to go to space and lose a few years. It's only like 0.02 seconds. But it exists, and if it wasn't for that, your GPS wouldn't work. So we have to understand that for the GPS stuff to work. So astronauts are actually, you could say, real-life time travelers who have actually gone forward in time by about 0.02 seconds. So time travel is an actual possibility allowed by Einstein. Now, here's a picture of a timeline. You could say that we would love to conquer time, but time, it seems, always conquers us. We can't escape it. In space, you can move left, right, up, down, forwards, and backwards, but with time, you can't go backwards. You can only go in one direction. It's called time's arrow. And as you can see here, you can start in 1830 over here and work your way forwards. And at different times in history, you can see the journeys the Doctor has taken. He can go forward to the future, that's off the screen there. We can come back from the future, that's off the screen at the top. You can go from the past and come in, or we can go back to the past. See, from any point, Doctor Who can travel in any direction. He breaks the normal laws and understanding of time. But there is another way Doctor Who breaks the laws and understanding of time. He tries to defeat time through regeneration. Because at the end of his life, when we would normally finish our lives, actually Doctor Who can regenerate and get to take on a whole new body and a whole new face. He gets to keep his memories as well. So that is a way that Doctor Who cheats time. And it was actually done because the actual actor was up against time. Yeah, he was losing his memory and he was dying. So regeneration was a way to almost defeat time in real life. And Doctor Who gives us many examples of that. But what if we could meddle with time? What if we could master time, in effect, to become Time Lords? What would that effect of that be? Well, you could argue that if we was to change something now, it could affect the future. But hang on, we live in the now, which means every action we do does affect the future. But if we could go back in time like a Time Lord, the argument is that we could change things so much that our present day might totally not exist. We could do something that could blow up the world. We could do something that could just end ourselves. We could go back and create a paradox by killing our grandfather to stop our mother or father being born and then stopping ourselves from being born. Now, many of these paradoxes exist, And the argument is amongst scientists whether we could go back in time and actually change things. Is that possible? Is there any rules in nature that would stop it? Well, in Doctor Who, they had a thing called the Blinovitch limitation effect. Now, they made that up. They said, oh, we just needed a way to get over the possibility of all the absurdities of going back in time, a way of getting around the paradoxes. But now, scientists have actually got the Novikov self-consistency principle, which says you can only go back in time and cause things to happen the way they did. You can't go and change the past. So if you went back in time and tried to prevent the vase from dropping, you'd find that that really happened the first time around, that there was yourself behind you. You can't change things in the past, you can only confirm them. And this represents that very idea. Predestination, where the Doctor, we see him die, and you think, how can a Doctor die? There'd be no more series. But the way they get over it is by using a replica of the Doctor, a machine, that looks like the Doctor, so really it wasn't the Doctor that died, just the machine. So you can't change the past according to that. You can only confirm what has already happened.
Okay, I know what you're thinking when it comes to the machine. You're thinking it's all very silly. You get these science fiction stories, as in Doctor Who. What if machines take over? What if machines run the world? And I'm sure you think you're very sophisticated and that's a daft idea. Well, let me re-educate you on this. John's going to show us the next slide. Oh, maybe not that one, the next one. If you consider three things. Yes, please, John. First of all, Twitter. Did you know that, yeah, and again, 25% of all tweets written on Twitter are written by bot. Secondly, on Wikipedia, 22 of the 30 most popular and common editors are bots. And thirdly, as you can see there, Wall Street, a perfect representation of it. 70% all business transactions that go through Wall Street are controlled by bots. So you can easily see that you can make a case for machines taking over the world. And if you don't take my word for it, look at these two geezers. Thank you, John. On the left, the world's most famous engineer, Elon Musk, the real Iron Man. That's what Elon Musk has to say at the bottom there, John. I think we should be very careful about artificial intelligence. If I had to guess at what our biggest existential threat is, it's probably that. And the most famous scientist in the world, Stephen Hawking, absolutely agrees with that. As you can see, he thinks the development of AI, machine thought, spells the end of the human race. It's something that Doctor Who's been talking about, I think, as you know, for the last 50 years or so.
Okay, so let's move into our final theme, monster. Now, we all are familiar with monsters, and we wonder why monsters, or you might wonder why monsters can be so attractive and alluring to us, even though they're scary. Well, Doctor Who has a classic effect that many people are aware of. There's my niece hiding behind the sofa, actually in a TV licensing advert, would you guess? CV scary. But that's the thing about monsters. We normally think of monsters as looking really scary. They invoke fear in us. We think that they can possibly cause us harm. It causes a primitive response in us, the fight or flight mechanism. Now, obviously, you could fight and try to throw your remote control, your slipper at the TV screen, or you could hide behind the sofa. This is a classic effect of Doctor Who, and we love that. We love having that adrenaline, that feeling. So where do monsters come from? Well, classically, monsters were things of myth. They were the idea of there's something so monstrous that we might find it and have to run from it. It could be under the sea, it could be at the top of a mountain. But Doctor Who doesn't go with the mythological version of monsters. It tries to bring a scientific explanation. So the idea is monsters are life forms, mostly, and the life forms are made by evolution. So Doctor Who, instead of saying evolution on Earth has created monsters, it says maybe on another planet, things would evolve to have vampiric tendencies. Or maybe even to have a rhino head on a human body. We'll get back to that. So monsters in Doctor Who are actually based on scientific ideas. Maybe not facts, because obviously we've never gone and actually found aliens, but it is based on scientific ideas. Even the idea of displacing something out of time can make a monster, as in a dinosaur, even though we know to a dinosaur it's not a monster, it's just something living its life. And there is an example of some crazy monsters that are actually out of the two-dimensional world, breaking into the three-dimensional world. So Doctor Who presents us with all types of monsters, but the thing they have in common is that they create fear in us. But monsters aren't just the way they look. Here's an episode called Time Heist, where we can see a monster in the middle. Everyone would look at that and think that's the monster. Well, I'd like to beg to differ and make you think, actually, that's not the real monster. Because in that episode, actually, its missus has been kidnapped, and everything it does is just to try and save her. That's not very monstrous. That's a very human thing to do. We embed our humanity into monsters. Actually, this guy down here is not just human, it's the future human. These are subtle monsters where he has a brain chip. So he's half computer. He's got a computer in his brain. This lady is a humanoid mutant. She can shapeshift. That's monstrous. We've got the lady at the top right. She's got many clones of herself. Now, the actual human version, not the clones, will kill the clones if they make a mistake. That's pretty evil, isn't it? I'd argue that actually she's the monster here. She's the most monstrous. Monster isn't just about the way you look. It's about your brain and the way you think. Few would argue that the things that the Nazis done were monstrous. We'd say they're monsters, but they look like humans. But did you know that the Daleks were actually based on the Nazis? Yeah? So if you put this monstrous behavior and you put it in a different form, actually the monster isn't the way the Dalek looks. The monster is in the way the Dalek behaves and acts. In essence, our worst fears create monsters. Our worst and deepest, darkest desires create monsters. And if you want to find the scariest monster, well, you've just got to look in a mirror. Because humans present the scariest monsters. And most monsters are a distorted, physical, distorted version of our worst fears and deepest, darkest desires. Here is the future human. So what does Doctor Who got to say about us? Well, the future human, the post-human, monsters. This is what we could become, according to Doctor Who. If he was to replace all ourselves with metallic parts, we become roboticized, we'd be cyborgs. If he was to only use your intellect and maybe stop playing football and stuff, you might lose all of your limbs and you might become this weedy guy called a Dalek and need something to help you get around. Or, if you're into vanity and you want to change your body so much, let's just get rid of the body. We can be as thin as we want and just stick our brain in a jar. There's Cassandra. Or the worst thing, this is the creature, the human of the year 100 trillion. The final evolution of mankind, called the Toclophane. So Doctor Who gives us monsters, and it shows us monsters, and sometimes the human can become a monster if you displace us out of time. So we've got to the end of our show, and I've got something special for you. I've got a Doctor Who rap, yeah? How many people here have seen Doctor Who? Oh, wow. Okay, simple. I'm going to ask you, calling all monsters, I've come here to stop you. Excuse me, who are you? And I need you guys to go, I'm the Doctor. At the same time, can you do that? Yeah, with conviction. Lovely. So let's get it started.
Have you ever thought what it's like to be wanderers in the fourth dimension? Have you?
Calling all monsters, I've come here to stop you. Excuse me, who are you?
I'm the Doctor.
Who? The one that Daleks and travels through time and space in the TARDIS. What? My granddaughter gave it the name. It's a
time and relative dimension in space.
And you might be amazed if it came in a ride, because it looks little, but it's bigger on the inside. So let's start with a quick introduction to the longest running science fiction show on television. First up, let me dispense with one main assumption. The Doctor's the man and Doctor Who's the production. Doctor Who came in '63 when the programme was aired by the BBC. And as everybody huddled around the TV, who'd have thought it would last half a century? An old man in a police box, slightly off-key. The classic mad doctor with a lot to see. And we would soon learn about his mysteries as he traversed the universe's histories. He made many enemies, enslaved many nations as he strayed space-time with his faithful companions. And when it seems death is his next destination, he makes like a phoenix with a regeneration. Calling all monsters, I've come here to stop you. Excuse me, who are you?
I'm the Doctor.
Who? The one that manipulates Daleks and travels through time and space in the TARDIS. What? My granddaughter gave it the name. It's a time and relative dimension in space. And you might be amazed if you came in a ride, because it looks little, but it's bigger on the inside. He's a man with a dozen faces and doesn't back down. He's been around for ages. The man from Gallifrey, born and raised, where the Time Lords are known to spend most of their days. But the fate of the Doctor was made when he stole the TARDIS. And so he goes exploring and always seeking and fighting for justice with both hearts beating. Now the Time Lord award for disaster is not to the Doctor, it goes to the Master. A great mind who seems to lust after dreams of world conquest with hearts beating faster. There's a mental reminder. Who's at the door? Not who, I'm the doctor. You can lock doors, but that won't stop me either. Watch as I calibrate my sonic screwdriver. Calling all monsters, I've come here to stop ya. Excuse me, who are you?
I'm the doctor.
Who? The one that exterminates Daleks and travels through time and space in the TARDIS. What? My granddaughter gave it the name. It's a
Time and relative dimension in space.
And you might be amazed if you came in a ride, cause it looks little, but it's
Bigger on the inside.
Now, come on, that's fairly illogical. And plus, time traveling is really impossible. Technology to conquer light speed is an obstacle. You're feeling okay? I think the doc needs a hospital. Been there, done that. Archer Jadoon, a platoon that had us trapped and marooned on the moon. An alien escaped and had come to Earth, and that weren't the first time, and some are even worse. I protected your Earth when the Cybermen invaded. You will be deleted if you can't be updated. And if you can face it, make haste into Cardiff, cause there you find Davos and a bunch of his Daleks are beating mean machines and other mad monsters like the Green Slovene, the human imposters. And if you still think time traveling's bonkers, blink when you see the weeping angels upon ya. Calling all monsters, I've come here to stop ya. Excuse me, who are you?
I'm the doctor.
Who? The one that exterminates Daleks and travels through time and space in the TARDIS. What? My granddaughter gave it the name. It's a
Time and relative dimension in space.
And you might be amazed if you came in a ride, cause it looks little, but it's
Hey, Theo.